Welcome to Wealth Coherence. I'm your host, Emily Bouchard, a social worker specializing in human development and fascinated by human potential. For over 20 years, I've been a coach to families with successful businesses and leaders with successful careers, and you may be surprised to learn that true wealth is about coherence, when our inner state of being aligns with how we live, give, lead, and love. In this series, we will explore an integrated model to flourish coherently, because wealth isn't what we have, it's who we are when we are fully aligned. Well, welcome to this edition of Wealth Coherence. I'm your host, Emily Bouchard, and I'm so thrilled to have Jessica McGauley here today. Our next part of this conversation is the really inspiring work that you do with parents raising children in affluence, and then also the children's side. Jess and I are both very passionate about the kind of curriculum that allows for the next generation, the rising generation, to really discover where their skills, talents, abilities, and interests lie within this incredible cornucopia of a world that they have access to. And then making it so that they can feel really competent, which builds their confidence. And I would love to talk to you, Jess, about your approach to the family culture around learning and how you support the parents in allowing the children to learn and learn through mistakes and explore and discover their competencies.
Absolutely. Well, to keep the theme or the narrative of storytelling going, I think the way I'd like to introduce essentially the philosophy of our work at Darlington and everything that we build, all our curriculum, all of the work that we do is built on is this philosophy. For those of you who have heard of it, and maybe some who haven't, in the University of Arizona, there was a project called the Biosphere Two. Essentially, it was a mini Earth, a sort of perfectly balanced ecosystem where it was how Earth might have been, perhaps, had we not made so many mistakes. You know, the soil was still perfect, vegetation, the water was right, the coral was growing beautifully. And it was a pretty big project, but it was going really well. But then they noticed that the trees they had planted were growing very fast, but they were all falling and snapping just before they reached what you might call tree maturity. And you have these amazing minds running around this biosphere going, well, is there a pest? Is there a disease? You know, we thought this was a secure unit. What's happened? And what they realized was they had not added wind into the atmosphere of this dome, of this biosphere. And without wind, there is no resistance. And without resistance, a tree cannot develop what is called stress wood, which is essentially the backbone of a tree. And it makes it stand tall so that when it's getting pushed around by the elements and there's a storm, it will stand strong. And we apply the same philosophy to our work at Darlington, which is you need to allow not for suffering. Suffering is a whole different topic, but some struggle during youth and adolescence and your early 20s to be able to know where your backbone, where your grounding is, and to be able to stand strong, because there is this wild misconception that if you come from wealth, everything will be easy. Now, we know that's not the case. And actually, there are very unique challenges to coming with wealth. There are a lot of privileges, don't get me wrong, but there are some really unique challenges. But knowing that you can back yourself, that you have the grounding, the self-esteem, the resilience to get back up, that's just something that money can't buy. So whenever we work with a family, we're always trying to instill this, which is, yes, you may have the resources to fix this problem for your child. Yes, you may know the answer. Yes, you are the best mind in tech or in medicine. Please let them work it out. And the results are so positive.
One of the things I see is that the bulk of my work with the families you're describing is with the parents and helping them shift so that they can have a degree of ability to sit within their own discomfort around witnessing their children's discomfort. And especially if you're shifting a culture where up until the point of the intervention, they haven't really allowed the kids to struggle very much because it's been so easy to insulate them or take charge, or like when you have a lot of resources, there's lots of ways you can make it so you don't have to experience the kind of challenge when you don't. It's like shifting a major momentum that they've been in. In physics, you need a really powerful force to shift a momentum. Like if you're going in one direction, to have it go in a different one. And I just find that parents need a lot of compassion and support and encouragement to stick to a new way of being with their children, especially when their children are becoming young adults and definitely needing to have that sense of personal agency through their own struggle.
Absolutely. And I mean, I have huge empathy for parents because certainly some of the first generation wealth parents I work with, and they would be the first to say this, but everything that makes them exceptional in business and in creating wealth is not necessarily the same or as easily transferred into parenting. So the ability to, fix a problem, to find a solution, to be reactive, all of those things is actually not what you need when you cross the threshold into the home. And there isn't too much empathy for that. They're expected to be exceptional across all boards, across all different roles and hats they're wearing. And for a lot of these people, the pressure that they're under, you say, well, actually, you could probably do with a bit of support to know how to navigate these different hats you're wearing and why they're important.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm guessing that you may have certain clients that come to you because there's a complaint around their children exhibiting behaviors, becoming entitled, spoiled, not showing up with the kind of values that they might want. And it's like, well, we have to look at where they learned this. And that's a painful thing for the parent. I love the phrase, everyone's at fault and no one's to blame.
Yeah.
So it's really about, all right, let's everybody take 100% responsibility and accountability for their role in this so that we can learn as fast as possible and shift.
Definitely.
And we're on a learning planet. Like, this is what we're here to do, is learn. What can we all learn from it? And it's not so much about making wrong or you shouldn't have done this, or it's more about, oh, there's been a lot of factors in play here. And again, I like to also bring it to like the culture that we're in and what we see in media and in terms of what wealth is supposed to look like. And of course, you want to be able to enjoy the wealth that you have. But then if you're modeling unbridled shopping without any budget, what does that look like? How does that translate? And how do you help the children see that, oh, well, just because the parents have this ability to do this doesn't mean that they should automatically do that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so tough, the modeling, but it's so important. And entitlement is one of the biggest topics I'm probably asked about or faced with. And I quite like to look at the word entitlement. If you hear entitlement, we all have an image, and it's this horrible sort of rich kids of Instagram idea. In my understanding, that is not entitlement. Entitlement is having an expectation or want for something, and that something could be anything. It could be money, it could be a relationship, it could be a job, a college place, a different kind of body, doesn't matter. But not being willing to put the work in to get that end result. So having an expectation and wanting the result, but without putting the work in. Now, if a parent says to me, my child is entitled, I will try and find out how they exhibit entitlement, because the chances are, if they're at a certain level of success, they will, maybe quite rightfully, expect certain things to happen without them having to put the work in now, because they have enough people to do that, they have enough resources to do that. But that is what they're teaching their child, that they can say they want something and it happens. So again, it's about being empathetic, bringing curiosity to the table, but saying a family's a system. And whenever a parent says to me, the child is the problem, I know that that's not the case and that this is very much a part of the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such important work that you're doing. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about the way that you approach your curriculum and what have you found have been like the most commonly useful and valuable things that you have developed that families are just like, oh, so grateful we found you.
Yes. Also, our curriculum, we've been working on it for 10 years, and it's really organic in the respect that when I first designed the curriculum, I designed it without the input of my families, without the input of the young people we work with. And it was wonderful because I said, I've created this amazing thing and I think you're going to love it. And they turned around and said, no, we don't like any of this. None of this is useful. So fantastic. I got great feedback about what not to do. And bless them, over the years, I really constantly ask for feedback. Well, what do you want? And frankly, if you get asked the same questions or you're brought up with the same problems repeatedly, they're giving you the data of what you need to really think about that curriculum for them. So we essentially we have one big curriculum that anybody frankly, would probably benefit from. But if you're from a wealthy family where there is no family business, there are certain modules that will be more relevant for you. If you come from a family where there is one and you're third, fourth generation, let's say, there'll be modules that are more relevant for you. And then there are parent ones as well. Now, the modules that we find repeatedly, the rising gens, the young people that we work with, sort of 16 to 24, as we would call them, they love the topics on the perception of privilege, for example. So we have a wheel that shows all of the different areas and ways that one can be privileged, because privilege is not just money. We have white privilege, we have male privilege, we have heterosexual privilege, and it's looking at how these rites of passage during their teens into their 20s, they'll come across hopefully different people and, different walks of life where their privilege will be questioned. And it's about how they can really address that without being defensive, whilst staying open and curious and learning hopefully from the other person, but whilst maintaining some level of respect for themselves. Because as we know, lots of young people from privileged backgrounds will be, to want of a better word, attacked for it, even though they didn't choose it. So we definitely help equip them with those sorts of responses and how to think about that thoughtfully.
Yeah, and I'll also add that they can often have conflicted feelings about it, right? Like they can be the enjoyment of it, but then also guilt or shame around it. I know that there's lots of people I've worked with, I'm sure you've seen this, where they hide it. It's like stealth wealth. They don't want people to know, or they don't mention to like a boyfriend or a friend before they go to visit them at their home. And then they're just like shocked when they're there. And it's once somebody knows, they can't not know. And that's where wealth coherence really matters, because if you have a grounding in your values and your purpose and what it means for you, that's your narrative that feels so authentically you, then you can, like you said, you can have your dignity in responding to inappropriate, like micro or macroaggressions from the culture, or you have a way of being proactive, and then you can feel a sense of peace within yourself as other people have their whatever agendas or reactions to finding out that you have wealth.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's all of that. And you're right. They are sometimes micro and they are sometimes macroaggressions. And it's important that they are prepared for those. Unfortunately, a lot of this is happening online and you can't delete or remove what you might have said in a moment of rage, for example. That's out there then. It's very hard to take that back. So I think we also have to just remember that our teen years are reactive. We are just much more reactive. The average teenager is not saying, let's sleep on this and make an informed decision in the morning, So I find that by preparing them over the coming years, you are likely to go through at least one or two of these scenarios. Unfortunately, this is part of the price that comes with coming from a family like yours. Let's help you prepare for it. Let's help you think about it.
And let's look at this micro or macroaggression from a recent experience you've had, because a recent article came out where you were interviewed in depth about this really important work you're doing for these families. And it was turned in kind of a malicious way in a sense, but it was just clickbait, whatever. So I'd like to talk to you about this term Nepo baby and what your experience was. I really loved your response to it and what you and your partner did, and would like you to talk a little bit about Nepo baby, because I think that is a microaggression term that's being used in the culture in ways that is not supporting people of wealth and feeling a sense of dignity around the fact that they were born into it when they had, it's not a choice. Like,
Yeah.
their
Yes.
lot.
My business partner, Farah, and I did a feature in the Times in the annual Rich List supplement, where they always cover a couple of advisors or areas of support for families of wealth. And they approached me to talk about raising children in the context of wealth, supporting young people who are growing up with a lot of money or with a family business. And we were both very, as you can imagine, quite anxious about the entire process and about how this would be. We had no control over it. We were told from the offset that we would get a final review of what was written, but that we would be able to go through verbally the rough gist of it and any direct quotes. Now, the article itself was fine. The term they'd used to describe me specifically was the Nepo baby whisperer, which I found incredibly offensive, as you can imagine. Very upset about that. And it was just very sensationalized, salacious, clickbait fodder. is how I felt it was portrayed. So that was very, very upsetting. Now, what was much worse though, and what I was warned about by the Times, was the comments and the reaction from the public. Over the course of a few weeks after the publication, the comments on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on the Times website, because they're all open comments for anyone in the public. These comments ranged from things like these children should die. And there was one person who put an image of a guillotine next to the article, and that this was the way to sort out these problems. And serious, real vitriol for the fact that any children of wealth would have any problems, anything to be upset. What they probably didn't understand was that they proved the entire article and the reason for the business existence right, which is you have a
That's
unique
what they're up against.
yeah, and that are hugely misunderstood and often not supported properly. It was very sad to see that was how the public had responded. There were a few, very thoughtful comments. Some people, especially within the industry, and I'm so thankful to them, to you, to so many wonderful people who did chime in and give their perspective in a very calm and rational way and tried to bring curiosity to the table. But what was proven was that nobody wanted that. No one wanted curiosity. They wanted heads on chopping boards. So the bit that I tried to respond in a calm way. I slept on it. I gave myself a couple of days. Otherwise, I think my post would have been quite a different post. And the way that we responded was to demystify this term Nepo baby and explain why it's a derogatory term. Ultimately, nepotism happens across all of society. Anyone who has left their front door or worked in an office or gone to a school will see that there are people in positions of authority across the board who help out, however you want to put that, open a door, write a letter to a younger generation. Is it right? That's open for debate, but it happens across society. And it is not just within wealthy families where there is nepotism. But that aside, it's so reductive. It removes all of their agency. It says that anything that they have accomplished is not theirs, that they were either given it or they've taken it. And for the clients that I work with, the families I work with, these are 16-year-old, 18-year-olds. They are just trying like any other teenager. Don't get me wrong, with huge resources, with money, we do not take that away. But in terms of finding their way, who they are, their identity. So to be labeled with this term at such a young age, when you really are just trying to find out, what you want to do, where you want to spend your energy.
They're forming their identity. Yeah.
It's really, really tough.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we started off our conversation today talking about rage.
Yes.
And how it can be a catalyst.
Yes.
And yet it's not an invitation. And I think it's a good thing to end on too, which is this idea of we're going to be encountering in life all kinds of reactivity. And what it does for us is a chance to look at, who am I? How do I want to respond? Do I want to go into reactivity and be rageful as well? And do I want to perpetuate this polarization that's becoming within this culture? And what happened was the degree of vitriol you got and the guillotines and everything, it just shows you the degree of rage being focused on people of affluence and wealth. And it is an important wake-up call in terms of how are we showing up in the world that invites that? How do we change the collective narrative around wealth so that it's not something to be stigmatized or to avoid or to not identify with, but more in a sense of, oh, how do I be a hyper agent in the world? How do I move the world the way I want it to be moved? Where's the kind of impact I want to be having? And being able to stand in that conversation. And I really want to acknowledge you and Farah for your courage to do that. I worked with phenomenal colleague Jamie Traeger-Muni years ago, and we were partners in a company, and we were approached by Mother Jones, which is a very left publication in the States. And she chose to do the interview knowing it was going to be a risk. And they did a whole negative thing about it. But what we discovered was that it woke up people to the fact that this work exists and that there were people that discovered it because of the inflammatory stuff that happened that wouldn't have known it otherwise. And I think that that's where there's that willingness to take the risk if it can help one person, right? I've worked with a lot of young people and families where there's eating disorders, suicidal ideation, mental health challenges, addiction issues. There's unresolved pain points around this experience of the milieu that they've been born into. And it's a very human experience. And oftentimes, the more money that's involved, the more it amplifies whatever the issues are.
Definitely. I would completely agree with that. And I think if we think about any other demographic, if you're born into a certain religion or nationality or anything, there's an acceptance that you didn't choose to be born into that. But if you have been born into wealth, into money, it is open season for you. You are suddenly up for public opinion and this vitriol. And so many of the young people that you and I have been so fortunate to work with are acutely aware of that and go above and beyond to give back, to think about how they can change the system. Frankly, most of my families, the kids just want to give it all away. And, to some degree, their wealth shame that they have around it actually diminishes some of the great and the good that they could do with it. So that needs to be addressed too, because we can think, oh, they're over here in this bubble, but actually wealthy families impact many of us. Some of them own companies and businesses that we buy from or we're employed by, and in some cases, some families I work with where they're in political parties and the next generation that's traditional, they will also probably be involved. So we all have a responsibility to better understand this group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for doing your part in really putting yourself out there and making it so that families really know what's available to them. But the fact that you're in England is really powerful too, in terms of being a forerunner there in terms of this conversation. And I am so excited about your forthcoming book. I got to have the privilege of getting a sneak peek at your proposal, and I'm so thrilled for you that it was accepted and that you have a contract, and look forward to getting a chance to read it. And it's really about empowering parents and youth, right? It's the taking on this topic in a big way.
All about that. And yes, I'm so grateful to you and to all the wonderful women, but wonderful people that I have met, certainly stateside as well over the last couple of years, who really are championing this work and being so collaborative about it spreading and not doing the old fashioned sort of, this is ours. You are being so collaborative. And I think that's essential for this work.
Oh, no question. And so, Jess, if people want to learn more about what you do, and can people work with you if they're across the pond, or do you only work with people in England?
I think, like a lot of people, pre-COVID, I would never considered meeting anybody in another country. But now, yeah, actually only a third of our families are in London. But yeah, if you want to learn more about Dallington, it's just dallington.co. And that's our company website, talks all about the sorts of concerns that parents and young people have. And then if you'd like to know more about me and the thought leadership I do, it's at jessicamcgawley.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and look forward to having you back when your book comes out.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Wealth Coherence. If it resonated, I'd love for you to share it or leave a review. This will help others find their way to this space. And if you're ready to keep exploring what it means to live, lead, and give from a place of coherence, head to emilybouchard.com to stay connected. Until next time, be well internally and allow your external life to be the fullest expression of who you truly are.